Welcome. I'm Athaga Crispy, and today we venture into one of the darkest corners of the human psyche, into a story that still chills the bones of even the most seasoned detectives. Jeffrey Dahmer, a name that has become synonymous with horror, a figure whose crimes shook a nation and whose mind remains a labyrinth of mystery. This is not just a tale of murder, but a story of obsession, of loneliness, and of the darkest desires lurking in the shadows. A story where the boundaries between man and monster blur, where the unimaginable becomes real. So join me as we unravel the twisted, tragic tale of Jeffrey Dahmer, the Milwaukee Cannibal. Milwaukee, a city like any other, with its tree-lined streets, quaint cafes, and quiet conversations. But behind this peaceful facade, there is a name that sends shivers down even the bravest of hearts: Jeffrey Dahmer. Known under the chilling moniker of the Milwaukee Cannibal, his story is that of human darkness made flesh. What we are about to uncover tonight is more than a mere recount of heinous murders. We will delve into the depths of Dahmer's mind, where shadows and light blend in a labyrinth of obsessions and nightmares. Brace yourselves as we unveil the man behind the monster. It all begins with a childhood. Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer was born on May 21, 1960 in Milwaukee, into a family that on the surface seemed normal. But from a young age, Jeffrey was marked by intense loneliness. A father, a scientist, absorbed in his experiments, and a mother unstable, who swung between depression and fits of hysteria. Jeffrey, for his part, often wandered alone, without friends, without real emotional bonds. One day, Jeffrey discovers a dead animal by the roadside. What would have been a terrifying discovery for an ordinary child becomes a source of morbid fascination for him. He begins collecting animal bones, dissecting small carcasses, searching within this lifeless matter for something he could not yet comprehend. Already, at this young age, the signs of what would later become his macabre signature were present. But the family's instability soon reaches a breaking point. In 1978, when Jeffrey is just 18, his parents' troubled marriage finally disintegrates. His mother, increasingly unable to cope with her own demons and the chaotic home environment, leaves the family home. This departure leaves Jeffrey isolated, with his father struggling to manage the household and his emotional needs. In the wake of his mother's departure, Jeffrey's father, unable to provide the emotional support his son desperately needed, decides to send him to live with his grandmother. It is here, in her small, quiet home, that Dahmer begins a new chapter of his life. Yet this move does little to ease his solitude. Instead, it deepens his sense of abandonment and isolation. In this environment of quiet, unspoken sadness, Dahmer's inner darkness festers. He finds solace in his morbid fascinations, and his isolation becomes a breeding ground for the troubling behaviors that will define his future. But was this fascination with death merely a symptom of a neglected childhood, or were they the first clues of a mind beginning to succumb to darkness? (1978). Dahmer is 18. He has just finished high school. At this moment, something changes within him, an irrepressible urge, a violent need. It is then that he crosses paths with Stephen Hicks, a carefree young man with an innocent air who agrees to follow Jeffrey for a few beers. That night, Jeffrey Dahmer commits his first murder. In an uncontrolled fit of rage, he strikes, strangles, and takes the life of Stephen Hicks. But he does not stop there. Dahmer dissects the body, preserves the bones, as if he wanted to immortalize the moment, a ritual that will become his grim trademark. To Dahmer, it wasn't just a murder, it was a revelation, a moment when he felt in control, when he felt that power finally belonged to him. He would later say, "It was like opening Pandora's box, but I couldn't close it again." Between 1978 and 1991, Dahmer kills 17 young men. His modus operandi is methodical, calculated. He frequents Milwaukee's gay bars, targets his victims, often young, marginalized men, and lures them with promises of drinks, drugs, or easy money. But in May 1991, Dahmer crosses paths with Konarak Synthasamphone, a 14-year-old boy. After drugging him, Dahmer brings him back to his apartment. But that night, something unexpected happens. Konarak, somehow managing to regain consciousness, managed to escape from Dahmer's apartment. Disoriented and desperate, he wandered the streets, barely able to grasp his own situation. A passerby, noticing his distress, contacted the police. When the police arrive, Dahmer, skilled and manipulative, convinces the officers that Konarak is his adult lover, merely drunk. The officers, without verifying the boy's identity or age, send him back with Dahmer. Hours later, Konarak is back in the killer's apartment, and this time, he does not escape. For Dahmer, this police blunder is not just an incredible stroke of luck, but a validation of his sense of invincibility. He kills Konarak, dissects his body, and preserves his remains, a tragic error that would cost more lives. Dahmer was not just a murderer, he was a complex puzzle of repressed emotions, conflicting desires, and urges he could neither understand nor control. Experts in psychology would attempt to unravel the mystery of his mind. Dahmer himself seemed tormented by his actions, yet incapable of stopping, an irresistible need to control, to possess, to devour. Some would say he suffered from a personality disorder, others would speak of schizophrenic tendencies. But the truth remains elusive. Dahmer's mind was a maze of dark thoughts, where every corner hid a new secret. July 22, 1991. A scream in the night, a desperate run through the streets of Milwaukee. Tracy Edwards, one of Dahmer's last potential victims, escapes from the apartment of horrors. With handcuffs still attached to his wrist, he runs to the police, terrified, pleading for his life. What follows is a discovery that shocks America. In this grim apartment, the authorities uncover the unspeakable: human remains, bleached skulls, hearts and organs preserved in jars filled with chemicals. And at the center of it all, a man, calm, almost serene. Jeffrey Dahmer is arrested, but this is only the beginning of a new horror, the revelation of his crimes. The trial of Jeffrey Dahmer begins in January 1992. The testimonies are chilling, the details unbearable. Each day is a descent into horror. Dahmer remains surprisingly calm, almost detached, as if he is finally willing to reveal the full truth. Repeatedly, he expresses regret, claiming he never wanted to kill, that he merely sought not to be alone. But his words ring hollow against the weight of his deeds. The jury has no doubt. Dahmer is found guilty of 15 murders and is sentenced to 15 consecutive life terms, with no chance of parole. Yet even in prison, Dahmer's story continues to fascinate and horrify. His televised interviews, his attempts at understanding, his confessions are all scrutinized, analyzed, dissected. November 28, 1994. Just 3 years after his conviction, Jeffrey Dahmer is murdered in the prison showers by another inmate, Christopher Scarver. For some, it was justice served for Dahmer's crimes. For others, it was an easy end to a mystery that still demanded answers. Scarver, on his part, claims that voices told him to kill Dahmer, adding yet another layer of mystery to an already dark end. But was this truly justice, or simply another tragedy in an already too horrifying story? Jeffrey Dahmer, a name that continues to haunt our minds. Was he a born monster, or a man devastated by his own darkness? A predator, or the ultimate victim of his own inner demons? In this quest for understanding, one certainty remains. Dahmer's path was that of a human being who crossed the line into the unthinkable, taking with him answers we may never obtain. The fear he inspired does not rest solely on his crimes, but on what they reveal about humanity's capacity to plunge into the abyss of darkness. A warning, perhaps, to remind us that even in the most familiar places, hidden shadows may emerge. If this story captivated you, don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the most compelling and tragic stories of our time. Until next time, stay curious and stay safe.